Welcome to this week's episode of Telling Secrets. And I'm so excited because a new format that we're going to be exploring in the next year is kind of some interviews of the secrets of other people. And one of the secrets that I'm looking to explore is the balls of other men. And you heard me right. Wanting to be able to understand how other men have done the work of going into their vulnerabilities and into their shame and been able to find the path back to their hearts so that they can truly start living their lives through their cocks. And this is something that we're exploring with dad balls and what that means in our masculinity. And I'm interviewing men about that journey that they've been on. And my first interview this week is with Brandon. And Brandon has lived that path. Growing up with a split family, with a father that wasn't very present, went into the military and went on a journey that led to some pretty dark places. But in that process, he truly found himself and has a lot of wisdom to share with us about his own journey into his dad balls and into his masculinity. So I'm so excited to share this with you. Hope you're having a great day and hope you enjoy this episode of Telling Secrets, special edition Dad Balls.
Sure.
I'd love to start with, a little bit, just kind of tell me about who you are, a little bit about what you've done in your life, your career, just kind of let's start with some of the basics.
Okay, great. I'm Brandon Osorio. I'm 28 now. Yeah, I'll be 29 next month.
Okay.
Currently live in Castle Rock. I was born in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Okay.
Grew up between Las Vegas and Arizona. My parents had split up, so I went back and forth. It was a whole thing. And then I wanted to get away from my family after graduation, so I moved all the way to Maryland with some friends that lived there. Became a waiter.
What age was that?
I was 19.
Okay.
19.
So
Yeah.
19 is like the first time you stepped out kind of on your own.
So when I was 18, after I'd graduated, I moved out with friends, and I was just,
Okay.
it was party central. That's all we were doing, drinking and partying the whole time. Just like most teenage boys do when they move out,
Yeah.
And then I decided I just wanted a new change. And so I had friends from the church that I used to go to. They lived out there and they let me crash at their place. I lived there for about a month. Within that month, I got a job, found a place to live, and they were shocked. They were like, "Oh, we've never, we thought you were going to be here for a couple months." And I was like, "No, I don't want to be a burden on anyone. I also want my own spot, just want my own place. I want to be able to come home and relax and not deal with anyone else's BS, So did that in Maryland for a little bit, and then as a waiter, I served an army staff sergeant.
Okay.
He had just came back from deployment. He was having dinner with his huge family. I said, "Thank you for your service. I really wish I could do what you do." But I had a record from my youth when I was a teenager.
Okay.
Just making bad decisions. So we talked, and he said, we've loosened up our rules a little bit, so maybe you should go talk to a recruiter and see if you can get in. And I think 3 days later, I went and saw a recruiter.
Wow.
Yeah, saw a recruiter. We talked for 2 months maybe, and he sent me on my way. It was great.
What was that draw for you to enter into the military? What was that kind of piece that was inspiring for you?
So my family on my mother's side had served. So my great-grandfather was a Marine. My grandfather was in the Army. He was a mechanic. But ever since I was a child, I wanted to be a soldier. I thought it was one of the most amazing things you could possibly do, to be a warrior for your country, for your family, for the things that you love. And so growing up, I thought that's what was going to happen. And then I got in trouble, obviously, and that kind of just went out the door for me, or so I thought.
Yeah.
And then luckily, when I did talk to the recruiter, he's like, "You know what, like, I'll do everything I can. And you seem like you want to get in, so we're going to get you in." And I got in. So it was great.
How did that lineage inform your understanding of masculinity and what it means to be a man?
Oh, geez. So back then, I thought it was, to be a man, you have to be a supporter. And also, there was different levels of manhood, right?
Okay.
So if you were a soldier and you were fighting for your country, to me, that was like the highest level of
Okay.
manhood, because
Yeah.
you're training yourself to be a weapon to kill other enemies of
Yeah.
your nation, you know? And so for me, that was like the highest you could go. And then it
Mhm.
was, as long as you're supportive and a good person and had good morals and would take care of your bills and, never
Mhm.
have any worries financially, then you were good enough as a man.
Mhm.
And then
Mm.
below here was just like my 16, 17, 18-year old lifestyle that a lot of people still have after high school. But that's like drinking, partying, not really caring about things, just living life so that you're happy in the moment, but not really expanding. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
uh, it was just like different levels of life, and then it changed obviously as I grew older, and once my kids came into the picture,
Mm.
it's changed for me.
When you think back to like some of those earlier times and understanding of like masculinity, can you remember, or what are some of the earliest memories where you felt like that's a man? Like you saw something, whether it was like in pop culture or in your own life, where you felt like that's what it means to be a man.
When I was real young, I know it's kind of funny and probably uh, cheesy, but watching what was it, like Predator with Arnold
Okay. Yeah.
Schwarzenegger, all
Yeah.
those dudes that are just jacked and doing what they got to do to get the mission done.
Mm.
I was like those dudes right there. They're all huge and they got these big guns and it's easy for them. They're doing all this stuff, uh, and then and maybe in my own personal life, um, and this is going to be kind of a flip, going to a darker place. But when I want to say 4, maybe 5, the first time I saw my dad actually do something heroic in my eyes, he came home from work. He used to work like 3 jobs.
Okay.
So the whole story is I came home from school. My baby sister was crying.
Mm.
I told my stepmom, I said, "Hey, Ashley's crying." And she said, "Shut up, go do your schoolwork, leave me alone, leave your sister alone."
Mm.
So I followed orders. I said, "Okay, I'll go to the kitchen." I started doing homework. 30 minutes goes by. My baby sister is still just like crying, screaming
Mm.
at the top of her lungs. And so I'm obviously distracted and I'm sad as an older brother that my little sister's crying.
Mm.
I go pick her up out of her crib and I, cradle her, I
Okay.
cuddle her, and she finally calms down. She's happy. Someone's giving her attention. I'm sitting on the couch and I'm just having this really beautiful moment with my sister. And I hear my stepmom's door open, and I immediately know that I'm in trouble. I'm just like, all right, here it
Mm.
comes. And she snagged my sister out of my hands, runs, puts her back in the cage, in her crib, and she comes out and she just starts wailing on me. Just like she was
Um,
very abusive. She beats the ever living shit out of me, and I go to my room and I'm crying, and I'm like, I remember there's like blood on my back because of her nails, and so I'm just like in my room waiting hours till my dad gets home. And
mm.
so he finally gets home around maybe 8 o'clock, and I hear the jingle of the door keys. And so
Mhm.
I just book it. I run as fast as I can to get to him, and I'm sobbing and he can't understand me. And he's like, what is happening? And so he sends me to my room. He talks to her and they start arguing. He comes in and I explain to him what happened, and I show him my back and it's all fucked up. And he's like, pack your bag. I'm taking you to your mom. And
Wow.
then, so I'm like frantically looking for stuff that I need to pack, but I'm also like 4 or 5. So I don't know what I need to pack. So I'm like,
Yeah.
boy, so one sock, one shoe, another
Right.
shoe, you know? And so I hear them arguing, and he's like, you need to move. I'm taking him away and, calling the cops. And I
Mm.
look out, I peek out my door, and it's down a long hall. And she attacks him, and he like throws her into the wall to get her to stop.
Mhm.
Right. So he like physically puts her into the wall. And in my eyes, I'm like, oh my God, he's saving me from this monster. He's beating her up
Mm.
and he's doing what he needs to do to get me safe. And
Mm.
so for me, I think at the youngest, that's when I thought it was like, okay, a man is supposed to protect those who can't be protected by themselves,
Yeah.
you know? And then,
Yeah.
and then that story goes into a whole, like, we we went to a gas station, called my mom. She came up. pick me up. But as she came, the cops, so my stepmom's brother is a cop.
Okay.
And so she called him,
Mm.
and all his buddies came and arrested my dad in front of me. And it was like, I was like, why are you, well, you're arresting the
Mm.
wrong person. And they're like, shut up. You
Wow.
don't know anything. You're a kid, like they just totally disregarded me. And I never talked to the cops after that. And then that kind of went into a hatred of cops for a little bit of my youth, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You saw like that betrayal, like of like what your dad did versus like that justice wasn't served.
Right. Exactly.
Hmm.
Yeah.
How, as you kind of got older and you kind of had these pictures of masculinity around you, do you feel like you connected with it in the sense that you then saw yourself becoming a protector, becoming into this, or were there parts of it that you're like, that's not me? Like, how did you connect with these pictures of masculinity around you in your youth?
So I actually did my best to stop bullies
Mm,
whenever I saw it happening. I was very I'm typically an antisocial person
mm,
in certain aspects. And growing up, I was I was the popular kid, but not by like I wasn't trying. It
okay.
was more of a Brandon's really nice to everyone kind of a thing.
Okay.
And as I grew up, I would always look for opportunities to help others, uh, stop bullying. Um, if you needed me to fix something, I would fix it if I could, or just any kind of opportunity to serve someone. Um, for free. That's what I would
Mm,
look for. And then when it came to protecting, it was a lot of I would be friends with like the geeky guys and the nerds and like the wimpy
mm,
dudes because I was always the taller kid. So
okay.
nobody really messed with me, right?
Yeah.
And then as I think I turned, I don't know, 11, 12 maybe, I started taking martial arts and so I learned how to fight.
Mm,
Um, I also grew up with kind of a rowdy crowd where fighting was just like a normal thing.
yeah.
So we'd go to someone's house that we were beefing with, and then we would fight them, and
Mm,
then do the same thing next week. Stuff like that. Just terrible upbringing in certain aspects, but also I kind of kept my morals of protecting the weak.
yeah. I'm
You
always
know.
curious about like in our journeys of our masculinity, fighting is an interesting one, right? Because there's something that feels very masculine about the idea of a fight,
Hmm.
whether it's physical, whether it's a journey of an adventure and fighting towards a goal. But a fight is definitely part of, I think, the masculine process. How
Yes.
how did you find like fighting played out for you, like as a kid? And like, yeah, how did that inform your masculinity, like your ability to fight?
It's that's a two-sided coin there, because if you lose a
Yeah.
fight, it's very humbling. It's very like, God, I just got my
Mm,
ass kicked. And it doesn't feel good. It does not feel good to lose a fight, um, especially if it's like a fight that didn't even need to happen.
mm,
If you're being cocky for no reason,
yeah.
especially younger kids, teenagers specifically, all that testosterone's running through our body,
Yeah.
and we just want to like be top dog, right? And then if we get our ass kicked, and it's if we started it, then you're just like, oh god damn it, like I need to calm down. Obviously, I'm not who I think I am at this
Mm,
point. But when you do get into a fight, I think there's a mutual respect with the person that you are fighting.
mm,
Win or lose, you did the thing. You did
yeah.
the fight. You gave it your all. I actually had probably two or three friends that started off as enemies, but once we fought, we were like, cool.
Really
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah, and like it's the shit talking goes away after that,
Yeah.
and you know
I've
it's
I've seen that theme before, and it's interesting where sometimes your quote unquote enemy, you
mhm,
have to like, there's like in fighting, you deal with your shit, and then you get past it and you realize there's actually friendship on the other side.
right.
Like the thing that like, cause you worked through the thing that was like actually like separating you, or you're like, like kind of that fuck you energy. And then you fight, and then you realize, oh, you're actually like a pretty cool dude. And then because you went to that like more dark underworld place of like that fight, you actually found someone that you could connect with. And then from that, deep friendships can evolve from.
Right. It's really strange how I don't know if it works for women too, but how just men work that way.
Yeah.
from my personal experience, is just so strange. Like, I got into, for one example, this kid, I think his name was Chad. He wanted everyone to like him, because he was the new kid, right?
Yeah.
So he was a new kid. He was from Hawaii, so he kind of was already popular with the girls, but everyone just liked me because we all grew up together. It was a small town, and he wanted the attention that I was getting, and so he tried to call me out because he figured if he beat me up, he'd be the new, best one.
Yeah.
Hold on a second.
No worries.
Hey, guys. What's up? Okay. Oh boy. Okay. Anyways, yeah. So he would try to like get me to fight him at school, and I'm like, no, we're not gonna get in trouble at school. Like, we can do this at the park. And so, back then, I'll meet you on Wednesday. Be ready. And so, we got into this fight, and we beat the crap out of each other, and then we stood up and we just hugged each other and said, all right, cool, we're done.
How much of that do you feel like in your experience is that, we fight from a place of insecurities, right? Like, there's something about me that feels insecure about this other person.
Yep.
Someone in the fight is insecure, right? It's all like, I think that's always evident. Someone's either trying to level up because of insecurities, and someone's keeping them in their place because of insecurities, or whatever that is. But there's a dynamic of someone being insecure. And when you meet another dude in that insecure place and you like wrestle through that, is that insecurity then give you fodder to be like, oh, I no longer have to be insecure about this? Like, how do you see insecurities connecting to the fight?
For me personally, if I was ever insecure about anything and I went to fight over it, it was more of a personal lesson.
Yeah.
I didn't learn at first. I didn't learn anything about my opponent. I learned more about myself. Okay, why am I so mad at this person? Is it really because of what they're doing, or is it because I feel like I should be doing more with my life and I'm jealous? Because I feel like a lot of it with insecurities, it's also jealousy. If especially as teenagers, man, teenagers are so funny. We think we deserve the world.
Yeah.
And everything should just go our way, and that's just not how things work,
Yeah, totally.
And, so I think fighting is definitely a learning mechanism for men.
Yeah. What do you think happens to our masculinity when we don't fight? Like, when that's taken away, or we don't have healthy avenues for fighting, what do you think that does to the masculine?
I think it destroys it, honestly. And I know today's outlook on masculinity is that you should just not be so tough, you should not be aggressive, all this stuff. But I think deep down, there's something just inside of all of us as men to just want to be able to fight, and to know our own strengths, to know our own weaknesses is good for our mental health.
Yeah.
And then I think if you take that away, if you take the ability to know that you can even defend yourself, it can cripple you.
Yeah.
And it's just not good for people who don't. I honestly believe that fighting should be part of. Sorry, my kid's calling me. I think it should be everyone's goal in life, to teach their sons and even daughters, but their sons specifically, how to defend themselves and how to, not violently, but how to subdue someone else without hurting them, So
I'm curious, like, in your youth, right, had a lot of informed elements of masculinity. It's really interesting. Like, the idea of being a warrior, the idea of fighting, the idea of standing up for yourself. When do you feel like you kind of first stepped into your masculinity? When did you first think, like, I'm a man?
That's a tough question. I think my first false idea of me being a man was probably when I moved out. I moved out of my mom's, got a place with my friends. We were having girls over, we were drinking, we were, smoking, doing all the things you're not supposed to do, still, because we're underage. But I think that back then I was like, hell yeah, I'm the man. I got a place with my homies. I got cute girls coming around all the time. we're drinking whenever we want because we got the hookup.
Mm.
Uh, and then I think for when I actually have felt like a man is I had told you in the email that when one time I wasn't able to pick up my son because my
Mhm.
back was just so
Yeah.
messed up, right? I think that kind of led me to the path of manhood for
Mm.
me, where I am. I'm right now. I'm in the best shape I've been in a very long time,
Mm.
and probably the best. Not the best that I can be, but for right now, yes.
Yeah.
Uh, I think that when I bought my new house, when I
Mm.
prioritized my health, the well-being of my children, and looking for a woman who completes us and makes our house a home, that's
Mm.
when I became a man.
Mm.
Because when I first had divorced, I bought this house with the intent of having it as a home for the kids, but also like is very bachelor patty, right? I was
Mm.
very in the mindset of I'm not going to get serious about anything. I just want to like have hookups. That's it, you
Mm.
know. And so it was a very childish move at the time, I
Mm.
feel.
Yeah.
And once I kind of realized that I want this house to be a home, and I need someone in our lives that's going to be a good influence for my kids
Yeah.
and good to me. That was when I was like, okay, this is it, man. You gotta man up. And then I did it.
Mm.
And so now,
Mm.
like now I'm engaged and the kids love it here,
Mm.
so
All
I'm
right.
I'm there.
That's so I have so many questions about that, but I want to go back
Okay.
and I want to learn about how so at 19 you step into the military and you enter into this kind of dream of being a warrior and a
Mhm.
protector and protecting this nation and going out and doing all that. What kind of initiation, whether it was the full obviously it wasn't the full expression of your manhood because you were just talking about that, but what did you learn? What did the military teach you about being a man?
Oh, so much. Basic things, such as being on time,
Hmm.
being punctual, dressing correctly, looking your best at all times. Yes, sir.
Hmm.
Yes, ma'am. To your superiors, still showing respect to people who are below you.
Hmm.
Those are the basic things. And then when it came to, so I was infantry.
Okay.
I was an 11 Bravo, and that whole there's a mindset of warrior where warrior meets man, and they're
Hmm.
one, right? And so
Hmm.
you go through this gauntlet and you go through all these challenges, and then at the end you come to this celebration where you become infantry. It's the very last task, and you circle up around this huge bonfire, and everyone gets like this grog, which is just a mixture of alcohol,
Hmm.
and they do all their speeches and stuff, and once you're done you get your blue cord the next day, or a day or two later depending on the scheduling. But that that training taught me that I'm a man because I've completed this and I've earned
Hmm.
this status. I've
Hmm.
earned
Okay.
the right to be called an infantryman.
Yeah.
And so it taught me that and it's a very toxic way of thinking, but it taught me that I'm the best kind of man out there because I'm a
Hmm.
warrior and I know how to kill
Hmm.
someone and I know how to follow orders,
Hmm.
and that's how that goes for the army anyways.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because looking for these like themes is again, I look at the landscape and it seems like a lot of guys are trying to figure out this thing of like what does it mean to be a man, right? And there's all
Mhm.
these different ways you can get into it and look at it. And so the themes that are interesting are like the ideas of like respect and responsibility, right? That teaching of like to be a man is to understand what it is to be responsible and what it is to respect, to understand where you're at within like within the hierarchy of things, right? That
Right.
like even if you're at the top, there's always something else to respect, right? You might be respecting your enemy, or you might be respecting like respect is crucial in understanding what it means to understand yourself, but then also to have the responsibility that goes along with that, right? So you're owning your shit, you're responsible on some levels. But then something else about the masculinity that's interesting is the ability to complete something and
Hmm.
not just start, or fail. Well, that might be part of the journey to really step into that to your manhood, if you will. requires some sort of completion and to finish something. And once that finish, that becomes like your next step into the journey of being a man, which is a cycle, right? It's always a saying. I don't know that we ever really arrive
Right.
fully as men, and I'm always curious about that. But it seems like at that age, that really informs you. And so, how did that support you in the coming years? How long did you serve?
I was in for 4 years.
Okay, and
Yes.
were you deployed?
Yes, I
Okay,
deployed. We were GRF, which means Global Reaction Force.
okay,
So, have you heard the term QRF?
no,
Okay, so QRF is Quick Reaction Force, and
okay,
basically, Quick Reaction Force is in case of emergency, call these guys and they'll show up.
gotcha.
Global Reaction Force is in case of a huge emergency, aka a war has been declared. We show up first.
Okay,
And then we were split off into several different groups. Some of us went to Egypt. We were in Kuwait, and then there was a few of us that went to Iraq, and I think Afghanistan too.
hmm.
So yeah, we were kind of all over the place. I was over there for 10 months. And then I came back, and right before the second deployment is when I had my injury, so I couldn't deploy.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did you have the injury stateside?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. We were prepping for the next deployment,
I
and
gotcha.
a towing bar, which is like an 800-pound metal bar, fell on me.
Oh,
Yeah.
so how did that impact you and all the stuff you've been building towards and your masculinity and everything? You're now injured. What does that do
Mm.
to you?
That is when my life started to fall apart.
Okay.
Uh, I had fully intended on serving the full 20 years in the military.
Hmm.
I loved my job. I didn't love the Army as much just because of lack of planning and there's a lot of stupid stuff in the Army, but I did love my job. However, when the injury occurred and I started going to see all these doctors, and they're like, yeah, like your back's fucked, and then
Hmm.
so I was on medications, and then I was starting to be unable to perform my duties,
Hmm.
which threw me into a depression. On top of having all the pills, I can no longer do my job.
Hmm.
And then it started to impact my home life with my wife at the time.
Hmm.
I was obviously upset. I'd go home angry. I'd want to drink a little bit. Obviously,
Hmm.
drinking and pills don't mix very well.
Yeah.
Um, and I went to a very dark place at that time,
Hmm.
unfortunately. And then my marriage started to fall apart. On top of all this, I'm losing my job. I'm losing my dream job.
Yeah.
Um, I'm being told daily that if it's a doctor, it's, you're no longer going to be able to serve. You're
Hmm.
no longer an asset. And then if it's over in my unit, oh, you're a piece of shit because your body doesn't work.
Hmm.
Very toxic in the Army. And it just obviously didn't help my mental state.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's almost like the journey of your masculinity had been really focused on what you were as a man, right? Warrior, body, strong, ability to do all these things. And now all of a sudden you're faced with who you are as a man. If those things are
Mhm.
taken away from you, are you still a man? What does
Right.
that look like? And entering into that like darkness of depression and really kind of that dark night of the soul, man, like
Yeah.
it's a tough one. It's a
It
tough one.
is super tough. Yeah. Just thinking back on it, just how hard it was on me mentally and physically. Because when you're not right mentally, and
Yeah.
you're not doing anything to take care of yourself, it's just because for me it felt like, so I went through um, paralysis for a while, and I
Mm,
still have some smaller episodes, but it used to be like 8 hours a day of
yeah.
paralysis.
Yeah.
And there's nothing worse than being trapped in your own body
Yeah.
when just 2 months ago you were one of the best runners, one of the best. You can, if you could throw on all your body armor and your gun and you can run as fast as
Mm,
possible, and you were like top 10%.
mm,
It was such a drastic flip of my life, and I just took it so hard. And the Army doesn't really prep you for failure, because in my line of work in the infantry, when you fail, you're probably dead.
dead. Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
so they
There's
didn't.
no room to fail because of I mean, it will lead you to the ultimate failure.
Right, exactly. And I just didn't
Mm,
have. And it sounds cheesy. I didn't have the training to deal with my injury and my mental state and my marriage and losing my job. It was all just happening so fast, and it was so hard for me to accept what was happening as it was happening.
Yeah.
So I just felt like a ghost, kind of just going through the motions and going where whoever told me to go somewhere would tell me, you know, and I would just go do it. And then I'm like, okay, what happened? And then all of a sudden, oh, hey, you're out. You're out next month.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously a lot of work on, again, the outside elements of a man, but the internal parts, your own emotional state, your mind, your soul, your spirit. Had you done any work around what those elements of masculinity look like, or did this send you on the path to figure that stuff out?
This all sent me on the path. Me getting out of the Army at the time was awful, but now looking back, all the stuff that I've gone through to be who I am now is I'm very happy with. I've gone to therapy, which was a huge help. I left I left my marriage, which was falling apart, which was also it was good though. It was good.
Yeah. So like one of my working hypothesis around dad balls is this idea that, you know, when we're in our youth as men, right, our balls are like really supportive of the cock, right? Just in the sense that, like, it's just that testosterone driven. They're fucking like tight. They're on point. The body is supporting you. You don't really think about anything that's really going on internally because you're just focused on action and showing up and doing all of this kind of quote unquote work, if you will. But really, like, when we step into our dad balls, we realize all of a sudden, like, you got to go to the depths of your vulnerability and your shame and the guilt and all the shit. And when you can't stay there, right? We can't live in that space, but we got to descend into that underworld to really figure out how to find our hearts, right? As men, like that alignment that, as men, we do have a heart. We're not just balls. Like, that's a more healthy way to think about as a guy. Like, we have a heart. And so what is that connection? And I guess I'm curious, like, because now you're dad, your life is falling apart. How do you start making these choices for yourself to do the work?
The choice started when I couldn't pick up my son. He was I don't know, 6 months old. I went to pick him up. My back gave out, and
is this your oldest?
My youngest.
Your youngest. Okay.
And I laid there and I cried. I just cried, and I was embarrassed and vulnerable. And I told myself I'm going to be a dad who's in a wheelchair and can't hold my son, or I can do what I can and get back into shape, lose weight, do everything I can to stay on my feet for as long as I still have them. And that kind of jettisoned me into drinking a little less, eating healthier, and starting to go back to the gym. Now, I went to the gym, I think this was 2000, like end of 18. And so 19 comes up, and then COVID hit, right? So I'd started going to the gym, and then all of a sudden COVID hits and gyms close. And I was like, God damn it. You know, I think I had maybe 2 or 3 weights at home, and the price of weights skyrocketed.
Totally. I remember that.
You know, and I was pissed. I was like, how am I supposed to, do this? So I probably lost maybe 10 pounds initially. And then I obviously gained it back, I assume, just because I wasn't working out anymore and COVID and everything was shut down. And then I was, at that time, still trying to deal with my marriage and, like, trying to find a job that the hardest thing about getting out of the infantry is finding a job that you can be in where you're not going to get in trouble for saying stupid stuff. Because you're very aggressive. You say super aggressive things, and you say fuck you a lot. You say, you curse all the time. And so I was like, all right, I'll find a job that's chill. So I started a job at Target, and I literally got so mad at this older lady. She must have been having a bad day. She was going around and she was just dropping clothes off the rack onto the ground. And I went up to her and I said, hey man, like, do you need help with anything? Can I help you? And she's like, no, just like super rude. And I was just like, I was boiling. I was like, this fucking bitch. And so I left, And I was like, I need to find like this. I'm going to fight someone. This is not
Mm.
good. My mental health is not good. I shouldn't want to fight an old lady. And then I left Target. I got a job coaching soccer for little kids. And
Mm.
that was probably one of the best decisions I made, because little kids will always find a way to make you smile.
Yeah.
And so that was really good for me mentally. And then the marriage was still super on the rocks, not working out. And I was like, okay, well, I had a stupid idea where, how couples are like, oh, we're having problems. Let's have a baby and that'll fix everything. Right. So I didn't have that idea. I had, let's sell our house and get a new house and that'll
Mm.
fix everything.
Yeah.
And at that point, we kind of just decided that we shouldn't be together.
Mm.
And so, no gym. Now going through a divorce, and my job is fun, but it's also not paying the bills. Right.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is still going so wrong. I want to be better, but
Mm.
I'm not there yet. I'm still trying to claw my way out of what I'm in. And so I think I had to go through the divorce. I had to get everything on the table where, okay, this is where your life is at. And you have a choice. You can either fall below and go back to drinking and doing
Mm.
drugs and just go on a terrible path and not be a present father for your kids, or you can push through everything that's difficult, find better jobs, go to school, get back into
Mm-hmm.
shape somehow, some way. And so we sold the house. I built this house that I'm in now. It's brand new build,
Mm.
and I invested a good portion of my money into a home gym.
Okay.
Um, and then so that took care of the athletic part until COVID was kind of over with, and then gyms
Mm-hmm.
opened back up. Then I got into an actual gym, and then finished the divorce, which was very tough, but it was also good for my mental health, and it's better for the kids because they're
Mm.
not seeing me fight with their mom
Mm-hmm.
all the time. And and then finding a healthier lifestyle to show my kids how to live life in a positive way,
Yeah.
so that, because I feel like as a father, as a dad, you should show your kids how to be happy,
Yeah.
right? Because they see you happy and they want to do that. They want to be
Mm.
happy.
Mm.
So a lot of it was tough, but it had to happen
Yeah.
in order for me to get here.
Totally. Right. I mean, it's the part of the hero's journey, right? Like going through dealing with the hard decisions, and especially when they're not supportive to us anymore, like not just staying in it and actually making a choice, taking a stand and taking back kind of some of your authority, if you will, like your internal authority of like what your yes is, right? And it seems like you kind of maybe went down a path of like, what's a yes for you, right? Like, and these things that you started going after, which is like your internal authority of taking that back and owning it, and then being able to build from that perspective. And so with that, I'm always curious, like, how did that begin to inform how you father your boys, right? So now, you've gone through this process, for lack of a better term, your dad balls have dropped. You're like
Yeah.
showing up, you've done the work, you've gone into the vulnerabilities, you're like beginning to rebuild. So kind of on the other side of this, you're rebuilding, like, how does that inform now how you think about masculinity for your sons?
Now, so growing up, being masculine was, and it still kind of is today, but men were not supposed to show their emotions unless it was anger. If it was
Yeah.
anger, like, yeah, that guy's pissed off. Hell yeah, he's going to fight someone. But if he's crying, like, oh, that guy's a big old bitch. Like,
Mm.
don't talk to him. Why is he crying? He shouldn't be crying. All this stuff, and that's just complete bullshit. Like, we're human beings.
Mm.
We have emotion. Life is hard. Life kicks us in the dick all the time. It's
Mm.
okay to cry. And so, me going through what I've gone through, I need to. Well, it's shown me that, okay, how do I wish I had someone to talk to me?
Mm.
Because I didn't
Yeah.
have anyone. I really
Yeah.
didn't. I just dealt with it by drinking and numbing the pain. Numbing the pain with drugs. And
Mm.
so, sorry.
Yeah.
What was I saying? Oh, if any problems come up in their lives, as small as they may seem, because they're only 4 and 7,
Mm-hmm.
I like to listen and say, okay, I understand how you feel, and it's okay to feel this way.
Mm-hmm.
Here's some suggestions on how to address it,
Mm-hmm.
so that I'm not taking care of the problem for them. They're
Yeah.
choosing how to take care of it. And
Mm-hmm.
so a lot of what I went through just taught me that it's good to show your kids options and how to do it, how they can get through their own problems with guidance, but not with relying on just me.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
that's a huge thing for me, is I don't want them to be dependent on anyone.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Again, it's back to the theme of responsibility and our masculinity, right? Like to be a man is to be responsible. And responsible means you're responsible for your emotions. You're responsible for your energy. You're responsible for what's going on. Now, that doesn't mean you have to be cavalier and be solo in that, right? Responsible
Right.
means saying, "Oh, I need this. Like I'm taking ownership of a need right now, and I'm willing to say that I need someone to come in and either be a support. I can't handle this one on my own. Being willing to ask for help, but
Yeah.
also realizing that you can't, someone's not just going to come in and rescue you without you being responsible for asking for that. I think that's a very different thing that a lot of times guys don't always know, especially boys because I got 2 boys as well. So I see that line where it's like, oh, I'm not going to come rescue you. Like, because
Mm-hmm.
that means you're not asking for it. That's really what a rescue, I think, sometimes can look like. Like, I'm going to swoop in and just be like, I'm just going to take care of this for you. And you didn't have to deal with any of it.
Right.
Very different than you're in a difficult situation and you're saying, Daddy, I need help. I don't know how to handle this. Great. Then I'm going to come in and support you and give you the tools that you need, or maybe even take some of that off of you because I can handle that for you right now. But if I just don't ever give that back to you, you're never going to become responsible. And if you're
Right.
not
They
gaining
can't
that
grow.
responsibility, yeah, we don't own our
Right.
shit. And that's, I think, one of the big pieces of men is like, we got to own our shit. Like,
Exactly.
because that's the only way we know how to deal with it.
Right. Absolutely. And when it comes to being a role model for your kids, you have to let them struggle. You have to let
Yeah.
your kids struggle, because when they get out into the real world and they're 18, and if they've never struggled once in their life because mom and dad took care of everything,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to crush them. I've
Yeah.
seen kids just come back out of high school and they're just devastated. Like, this world is kicking my ass and I don't know why. And it's like, oh,
Yeah.
because you don't have that life support that you had your entire life. And it
Mm.
sucks, but that's the situation you're in. You got to figure it all out. And so for
Mm.
my kids, I want them to be independent and happy and problem solvers, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Resistance, right? Like, I think so often in this world that we are in right now, so much of consumerism is about removing resistance. Like, I can just consume. I don't have to have resistance. So like, I'm hungry, I can DoorDash. I'm bored, I can watch this thing. Like, there's zero resistance in our world. And as you know, especially like training in the gym, resistance is everything, right? Like, the only
Right.
way you build muscle is through resistance.
Yeah.
And so you need that resistance. You need that struggle of the resistance to be able to grow as a human being, to grow muscle, to grow all of these things. And so that resistance piece is key. Like, with my boys, yeah, constantly trying to teach them resistance, whether like, we like to do little cold plunges together, get them in
Mm-hmm.
cold water and like kind of struggle a little bit and be like, yeah, it's cold. All right, you're good. Like, whatever. But yeah, teaching them some of those resistances and boundaries of like boredom. Like, boredom is okay. Like, how do you overcome that? And that's, you can be resistant in that. I'm curious, like, these things, it's informed your fatherhood, and now you mentioned you're in a new partnership with your fiance. How has some of these shifts in your masculinity changed how you show up as a partner and as a lover?
Oh, geez. That's a good question. So I learned a lot from my first marriage. Um, and therapy helped.
Yeah.
Therapy helped me kind of just categorize and organize what happened
Hmm.
with the marriage. And
Yeah.
going into this next relationship, it was very different, very
Hmm.
different. I was very mature about things. And I
Hmm.
said, I want us to be able to have open communication at all times. If something's bothering you, tell me. If I'm being bothered by something you're doing, I'll tell you. And then we need to figure it out so that it doesn't happen again, or we can work our way around it so that it doesn't bother us as much. So communication is huge for us. Um, and just being there for her, and actually like actively listening and doing what I can to make her feel that I actually appreciate her as a human and as a
Mm,
partner.
mm,
That's huge uh, for me as a man going into the new relationship.
mm,
Also, just putting in effort, small things. Every Wednesday, we we write a note to each other of why we
mm,
love each other, and then we
mm,
put it in. We have like I bought her like this little box, and so it's just full of sticky notes from me. And then every 10th of every month, I go and get her a rose.
mm.
And it's just like the little small things like that, just to remind
Yeah.
her that, I'm in this for her and me, not just for
Mm,
myself,
mm.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. One of the things that I've been exploring is how the masculine energy really creates the home. So as men, we're builders. We are meant to build, and that's part of our kind of DNA and our structure. So we go out and we build, and we can talk about that through the lens of like kingdoms, of like kind of that concept, or we can look at it as like the local home. Like that, as men, we build the home, whether that's like physically, we build the structure, or emotionally and spiritually and all these other ways. Like we set the container of the house.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we invite our partners in, that other dynamic of the feminine is the curator of the home, right? It
Sure.
kind of brings that energy, and it kind of creates within the container that we build. So I'm curious, like, one, does that resonate? And if it does, like, how do you find you build your home?
Yeah, it absolutely does. So like I said, this is a brand new build, and I helped design everything how I
Mm,
wanted it, and I made it comfortable for myself, for the kids, and for anyone else to come in. And it's a really nice home. And she came into our lives, and she's making it just comfortable. She's making it more
mm,
like us. She's just making it
mm,
more us, for where we come home and say, "Oh yeah, that's the picture from that day," or we actually just got some art. And so when we get that in our house, it'll be a nice reminder of our first cruise together,
mm,
and our love for this similar art that we picked.
mm,
So just stuff like that, little things like that she does to make this house so much more comfortable for me
mm,
and the kids. It's wonderful waking up on a day that like a Saturday, and I slept in a little bit. Maybe I'll get up at
mm,
9, and I'll come out, and she's making breakfast for the boys, and they're just laughing and having a good time. And
mm,
it's stuff like that is just so fantastic to
mm.
see, and it makes me feel that actually makes me feel more of a man, because I earned that with her, and it's like a gift to my children.
Yeah.
Those
Mm,
small, more happy mornings,
I love
you
it.
know.
That's
Yeah.
yeah, that's cool, man. All right. Curious, couple things, and then we can kind of land the plane, because I know you've got your boys, and I got my kids upstairs as well. So I'm really curious today, what rhythms do you have in your life that are helping you stay a healthy man?
Simple. Drink with friends, but only on special occasions.
Hmm.
Lift heavy stuff. Treat your body like it deserves. Build your body like it deserves. Love your loved one so passionately every day
Hmm.
that it doesn't get old. Um, I I think one of the best things I do as a father is when I get the kids in bed, I give them a hug, give them a kiss, tell them that they're safe. Good night. I love you. If they ask for a story and it's not too late, I'll read them a story. I'll make them laugh.
Hmm.
Um, I just, it seems mundane some days, but it's really, I'm living the happiest life I've lived in a very long time.
Hmm.
And so I'm taking care of myself. I'm taking care of my relationship, and I'm taking care of my kids.
Hmm. Hmm. I
And
love it.
those all, yeah. And those, as long as those are all taken care of, I think my mental health is going to be fine.
Hmm.
My heart's going to be fine. And my life is going to be fine, you
Yeah.
know? And that's all I can really ask for,
Yeah.
especially coming from, hey, you're never going to walk again. You're going to be a wheelchair for the rest
Hmm.
of your life. And also, you're never going to have a job that's good for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So compared to how it was supposed to be, I think I'm doing pretty damn good.
Seriously, man. And again, it's like my working hypothesis of dad balls is, so when you go to the depths of your balls, you find the alignment to your heart, and then you start living life out of your cock. Like that's the progress, right? I mean, and that's really as men what we're designed. Like we should be living, we should, and again, I think people think it's crass, but we should be thinking about like we're fucking life in the best possible ways. We are living with that energy of as the masculine, like we do penetrate, we do bring energy, we do show up with our intensity, we do show up with that hardness, right? And that's all really, really freaking important. But we also understand the rest, and we understand how to kind of then recharge back up. And we just have this cycle of that's what our masculinity looks like. And that it requires all three elements to be in rhythm with each other. And when one of them is out of sorts, like we're not showing up. And so it's about finding that rhythm of being able to really understand those three elements of who we are. So I'm curious, as we wrap up, what do you think other dads need to hear? What advice do you have? What's the thing that you think other dads that maybe aren't fucking life, they're in that dark place, what do they need to hear to be able to move forward?
Oh man, there's so much. There really is. There's just so much. But I think one of the best pieces of advice that I ever got was be the father that you wish you had.
Hmm.
Be the father you wish you had.
Yeah.
And I love my dad to death, and we had some ups and downs. The thing that I wish that I was with, or that he was for me, was present. Like I said, he had 3 jobs, so he was really never there,
Hmm.
which was tough. But yeah, so just be the dad you wish you had. Also, know that you're gonna fuck up. You're
Hmm.
gonna fuck up at some point. It's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Learn how to grow from it and make it into a lesson for your kids so that they don't
Hmm.
make that mistake or a similar mistake.
Hmm.
And I think the last thing is just show your kids that you love them and that you're there for them. I
Hmm.
think that's the biggest thing. I work at a school now, and it blows my mind how many kids come in and say, "Hey, my dad hates me.
Yeah.
You know, they don't support me, none of this." And that's the sadness in their voice, even when it's a regular conversation. It breaks my heart.
Hmm.
You got it. We made, like you said, we make life, right?
Hmm.
We have these kids, and we're all they have until they're 18 and they go off into the world. We should be positive for them and love them
Hmm.
and treat them with respect. That we brought them. They didn't have a choice. They didn't choose to be born. We made
Hmm.
that. you know
Yeah.
and so just love them and do your best to be a great father and a great role
Hmm.
model.
Hmm. I love that, man. I always say 6 words that the people in our families and our lives are looking to hear from us as fathers is I love you and you got this. That's all they need from us,
Yeah.
is to hear that they're supported and that they're loved and that they can do it. They can go out and whatever that thing that they bring to you, that encouragement of like, you got this. Like, you got this. I fully believe in you. And once your child or a kid or whoever, this can happen through coaches, right? So often you hear that relationship of other men and their coaches or whatever, but we are so empowered when we hear you got this. And for me, that's what I long for my kids as well. So similarly, like you're loved and you got all the tools that you need. You're able to go out and do this thing. And I'm going to be here supporting you, but I'm not going to do it for you. You're going to have to figure this out, whether that's the little things in life, like doing the dishes, or, the bigger things that happen as they mature and get older. So, man, thank you for sharing your story. I really appreciate it. There's so much
Yeah,
there, and I feel like we could go on, but we both have responsibilities of children that we
sure
need to
do.
go
Yeah.
spend some time with and go be present with. So thanks, man, for taking an hour today and just diving into this stuff.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. This was really fun.